We're now going to start our focus on a key action operator that's defined in RxJava's Observable class. Action operators don't modify their values, but only use the values for side effects. The observable itself is not changed. And we're going to be focusing here on the doOnNext action operator. The doOnNext action operator adds a behavior that's triggered when an observable emits an item. The behavior that's passed to this doOnNext operator is a consumer parameter that's called assuming everything goes well, that no exceptions occur, for example. So if we have successful completion, then the onNext consumer that's passed as a parameter to doOnNext will be invoked. In other words, this is basically registering a callback that will be invoked upon successful completion. The value that's returned from doOnNext is simply an observable that's modified at all. In other words, its type and/or its value and the values of its elements are not changed or modified in any way, shape, or form. This particular operator is most commonly used for debugging, logging, and/or for getting visibility into an observable chain, trying to see what's happening under the hood, if you will. Here's an example we'll be taking a look at the case study at the end of this lesson, where we're going to use the doOnNext operator to log each big fraction value when it succeeds. If something goes wrong, of course, the doOnNext operator will be skipped. So here we're taking the list of big fractions from the big fraction list, converting it into an observable stream using the from iterable factor method operator, and then we use doOnNext to log each of the items so we can see what was happening. Project Reactor has a Flux class whose doOnNext operator works essentially the same as doOnNext does in RxJava. Basically, the code you see here is identical to what we saw on the previous slide, except we're using a Flux now instead of an observable. Streams and Java Streams has a similar method called peek, which is essentially an intermediate operation that can be used to see the value of items or log the value or record the value or print the value as they go whizzing by. You can see here what we're going to do is we're going to create a list of 3 strings, A, B, and C, convert that list into a stream of strings, and then use peek to print the results out before we turn around and transform each string to uppercase and then collect it into a list and store it in a local variable. So that concludes some of the first discussions we're going to have of the action operators in RxJava's observable class. We'll be covering some other action operators later in this lesson.